Hello and welcome back to Galactic Goddess Podcast and TV. I'm your host, Rada Nelia, and today we have such a special guest. It's Sarah Paash, our evolutionary astrologer, and she's bringing in some big messages for this month. So welcome, Sarah. So happy to have you here.
Thank you. Hello, Rada. Hello, everyone. I am very excited to be here. I know for a fact that we've already been feeling the intensity of May. Just this last week has been really big. It's been a challenge for a lot of people. And I'm excited to get started and just kind of going into why it is starting off so intense, what the deeper meaning and purpose might be through all of these challenges coming up right now, and also to give the beautiful astrology that's coming this month. That's really, it's going to pay off. What we're going through now is really has potential to pay off.
So excited. So just feel free to just jump right in. I can't even talk right now. This energy is like, woo.
I know. Yeah. Well, I'll go ahead and start by what I want to do is go into the astrology, moment to moment like we normally do. But before we do that, I think it'd be really helpful to give kind of a bigger meta perspective of what I see in this pattern in the archetypal astrology happening this month, because there is like an overarching, a bigger pattern, and we can really gain a lot from seeing that from an outer perspective, from a meta perspective. So with that, on May 1st, on May Day, this all started with Mercury making a really intense square to Saturn, which just recently went retrograde this week, and a square to the South Node, and it's square to Pluto, which is also retrograde in Capricorn. And so this month, this theme of these really intense squares, these cardinal squares that are happening between Mercury and then Venus will be next, in this cardinal energy of Aries squaring over to the cardinal energy in Capricorn. It's a really intense and dynamic aspect that's happening. A square in astrology is always a point of forced growth. You can think of it as these cross paths. They have cross purposes, and these paths collide at this single point, one needing to go before the other. They don't really have a common purpose. So it's really butting heads. It's almost feeling like something's getting in our way from how we're moving forward. Because it's cardinal energy, it's also more sensitive, because cardinal, that modality is the most sensitive of the zodiac. It's the first initiating signs of the zodiac. And the South Node being there in Saturn and Pluto, those are heavy hitters in Capricorn. So this is really old, deep, karmic, ancestral stuff that's coming up. And it's coming up in order for us to really do a process of healing and deeper integration of initiating change, in these old paradigms that are really revealing themselves even deeper, and our new beliefs and our new growth and our healing that we've been, progressing. It's like, they're butting heads, and it's probably having a lot to do with self-worth, because the sun is in Taurus. We are in Taurus season, and Aries has to do with the self. It has to do with the confidence to be that unique individual. So any form of feeling of rejection, feeling like the outsider, feeling that kind of pain of not really feeling like you're being able to be witnessed for the divinity that you are, that's definitely could be coming up in these squares. One thing I'll say though is these squares, what's happening at the end of the square is this beautiful trine to Jupiter retrograde in Sagittarius. So that fire trine invites us to be creative, to really stimulate us to go back to that bigger perspective, to zoom out and see the whole picture, and to have faith. So it's a test of our faith, both within ourselves, because it's Aries, but also in what we believe is possible, and what we believe, what we have, hope for. What is our hope for the future? What is our hope for the world? What is the hope for ourselves? Really, this is a test of that, and to really anchor into that and have faith in that. That's going to be the challenge. Can we show up for that? And then since Saturn's there, also this challenge is going to have to do with maturity and self-containment. So the test is to not let the emotional sensitivity trigger us into reacting, into falling into an old cycle, falling into an old loop. and really tying ourselves into something that the truth is, like, we have done this healing. We are ready to move on. And it's time to let the tower, just ego death, tower crumble, whatever it is, let the tower crumble. And then we're going to have all of that energy move into Taurus. And then Mercury and Venus will make that conjunction to Uranus, which is in Taurus. So it's going to be like this whoosh, brand new blank slate energy. This like awakening is going to happen. This opportunity is going to come, and an unexpected kind of solution to what's coming up. But we have to get through the square first before we can get to that. And then that's like that full moment in the tarot, that kind of like 0 point, right? So I like to think of that as an ending and a beginning. We're going to get through the square, get to the conjunction. And then as these planets move through Taurus, the Sun, Mercury, Venus are all going to make beautiful trines and sextiles over to the trines in Capricorn. So rebuilding, you know, and sextiles over to Neptune. So reimagining. So it's really this bigger overarching cycle. And it's going to be like one at a time, starting with the Sun. We had at the end of last month, ourself, our identity. Who are we? What is our life? Like, what are we doing? Our passion, our purpose. And then Mercury, our beliefs, our mindsets. Where is our own mental attitude getting in the way of moving forward? And then Venus, our relationships, our heart, our values, our self-worth. So yeah, just to kind of give that bigger overarching meta perspective that this is a bigger cycle than just this moment, even though what's coming up moment to moment feels really intense. I really encourage people to kind of take a step back and to hold that into perspective. I think it's so helpful to know that it's a temporary part of a bigger puzzle, so to speak.
Oof, wow. Yeah, it's like hitting every zone.
Every zone, yes.
Yes, it sounds like a lot could come up for people this month where, maybe they're going to have to revisit a lot with the Taurus and the self-worth in different areas. So when triggers come up and people feel that maybe self-worth issues, what advice do you give them to work with this astrology energy?
I mean, there's so much that we have to consider. First of all, I think we have to acknowledge that it's a very personal experience, that what we're feeling is so unique to each one of us. And what triggers that in us is a different trigger for everybody, for that wound. But we have to also recognize, like, can we hold the paradox of recognizing that although it's so uniquely our wound and our trigger, it's such a human experience and we're all sharing it. I mean, in our own way, we're all feeling it for ourselves. And so really connecting to that source of humanity, because I think that's a big part of this collective cycle of growth is like, will these situations, these triggers, these feelings, these wounds, will they cause further separation? Or can we use this as a window, kind of this like opportunity to go into a deeper connection both within ourselves and our humanity and our connection to others? So be so gentle and tender with yourself. Be so kind to yourself. Self-care it's Taurus season. Self-care is very much needed. We need to nourish ourselves, our bodies, our minds, our spirits, rest, replenish, give yourself what you need, and really try not to need it to come from somebody else. I think that's going to be a huge thing. If we're projecting, if we're needing somebody else to give us something, if we're withholding ourselves from feeling better by waiting for someone else to give us that, it will just hold us in a prison, essentially, our own prison.
That's true. That's such a key factor. Yeah, so think of the things that make you feel good. I am going to get a manicure and pedicure later, so that's what I'm going to do to make myself feel good, because when I take care of me, and that's not like self-care, but that's just sort of like things that make me feel good as a woman for myself. When I look down at my nails and they look good, going outside, I've been doing a lot of walking in the forest, but I noticed the 1st of May, I fell asleep, I took a nap, and I never take naps, but I felt like I needed to just lay down and take a nap And I did, and I felt so good. And it's like I've been needing extra sleep in ways I haven't before, really. Just like really extra sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know who I was talking to, but I said that literally to somebody this week. I was like, we need naps too.
Yeah.
Like everybody needs naps. It's
Yes.
not just like some people and sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. And I was going to tell you that whatever your self-care is, like maybe that is your self-care. It's not the only self-care, but it's like maybe that is your self-care. So whatever, you let that be true for you. You get to own that, so to speak. So yeah, I think that's so important. Something else came to me and it already kind of fell away, but this week I can go ahead and just tell everybody that what's been happening this week before we were able to do this podcast was Mercury was kind of the first heavy hitter. So Mercury and Aries made a square to Saturn in the South Node on the 1st of May, like right away. And then a square to Pluto. So what that means is there might have been some mercurial kind of like butting of heads. So communications, some tough conversations, some tough words exchanged. There might have been something within our own minds, our own beliefs. That inner critic can sometimes come on really strong. We're forced to face the parts where we have a lot of limiting beliefs about ourselves, because it's that Aries self. That's where Mercury's at in our mind. And then it's like working against our inner authority, Saturn and Capricorn in the South Node. So all of those old patterns of where we might be self-limiting, we might talk ourselves out of things, we might talk ourselves down, we might doubt ourselves, we might, just degrade ourselves or pity ourselves, whatever it is. Whether it was something external that triggered that, or it was just internally, you noticed a lot of that coming up. That's probably like, that's the energy that was coming up. So it's an opportunity to basically create boundaries. Saturn, the medicine for Saturn is boundaries, is containment, is maturity. So taking a stand and really just saying, excuse me, no, thank you. I know who I am, and I have evidence. So that's what's really important, is taking the time to self-referral and reflect on the work that you've put in, and to really ask yourself when these things come up, to question them and to really say, wait a second, I can really take a look and be like, I've created a lot of good in my life too. So that's the other thing that is this month is this juxtaposition of all of this really good shit happening for everybody. I mean, like 2019 has been like moving forward and manifesting, and it's in alignment for so many people. I know it's so beautiful. We talked about that last month. And so it's like, don't let this challenge that's coming up take away from the good that's also happening, but rather resource the good that's happening to encourage yourself to move through the challenge with more confidence and grace and poise. That's definitely important. And then when Mercury makes its square to Pluto, which it did just yesterday, it's also trining Jupiter retrograde in Sagittarius. So what does that tell us? That tells us that although there's these cathartic need to release these, like, it's like scratching at your mind. That's like when I think of Pluto square, or Mercury square Pluto, it's just like, it's like really painful thoughts, really painful, like just perceptions of our reality. But we need to release those. We need to give ourselves the opportunity to like let those go. You were talking about forgiveness. That's so huge. And forgiving not just others, but also ourselves. This is a big release moment. And Jupiter's there to give us some hope, like we can have hope that we're moving forward, and that we're not going to feel like this forever, so we're kind of coming out of that intense wave. And it's like all of that needed to happen with the dark moon in Aries that was also happening as we build into the new moon at Taurus. We have this new moon happening tomorrow, which is going to be so beautiful. It's at 14 degrees of Taurus, and Uranus is now at 3 degrees. So this is the first time Uranus has made it to 3 degrees of Taurus since entering in last May. So this is a new territory. This is all new. This is like a new world, so we get to start fresh. And that's up to us to really let it be new, let it be different, let ourselves be different, and plant seeds to continue moving forward with at this new moon. It's a potent and magical new moon, a beautiful time to do something really magical in the mundane. So, really getting into nature, like you said, really getting our hands in the soil, just feeling that connection to our everyday reality, our physical body, something sensual, something simple, but that brings us that deep pleasure, that available joy in the moment.
Wow. Getting grounded, doing some gardening, picking some flowers. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah. And also connecting to the things that bring us that feeling of joy and pleasure, and those things that like are up to par with who we know we are, like surrounding ourselves with people who mirror back to us the work that we've done and the worth that we are claiming. It is so important. You have a choice. So the things that we feel powerless in, those are the places where we give our power away, right? So it's like you have a choice. You don't have to be liked by everybody, like that's just a fact of life. But you have to own your worth. You have to own your value and respect that, and really appreciate the things that appreciate you. If there's any relationships or assets or anything lying around that's really you're like hoarding it, like you're like, oh, but I want to bring it with me, oh, this is so good, I don't want to leave this behind. It's like, why? If it's like causing you so much grief, why? Like really ask yourself, why do you want it? Why? Give yourself permission to admit that maybe there's something you're ready to be done with. Maybe there's something you're ready to move on from. You have permission to do that, and do it with, like I said, the maturity is really important right now.
Yeah, that's so. And I really like what you said about surrounding yourself with people that mirror the work you've done. That was a huge underline, because it's easy to bring all kinds of people into your life, but if they're not mirroring the work you've done and acting in ways that are not in divine honor of who you are, you've got to really assess, like, hey, is this reflecting the work I've done? Is this what I'm allowing? And then yes, keeping people around, keeping your company reflective of the work that you're doing is very important, because that's how we can continue to go higher. Is like we need to have that beautiful support around us so that we can keep moving forward with the joy of what we're doing, right?
Yeah. And also what came to me when you were saying that is, out of respect for the work that we're doing, out of respect for ourselves and the people that are benefiting from the growth that you're doing, it's like prioritizing that over maybe a smaller self or ego's need or attachment to be liked by everybody, to please everybody. That's definitely can be a shadow side of, if we're not really using that Aries fire for feeling good about ourselves, to have that confidence, to really move forward to what, like letting the heart drive us forward. If we're holding back for somebody else, that compromise is very painful. And I was just listening to a YouTube video with Jim Carrey, and he said there was something about that he said, I'm paraphrasing, but it was, if we compromise and we fail, it's a lot more painful than if we go for what's truly the thing that we care about and we're really authentic with ourselves and we fail. So it hurts more, basically, to fail for something other than ourselves,
Yeah, wow. I love him, by the way. He's incredible.
Yeah, he's so woke.
So woke. I'm like, wow. He's incredible, man. But yeah, that's so true. And what do you have to say to people who are just sort of, a lot of people are coming into, I guess I'd say like a more, like a truer version of themselves, perhaps, where they've felt like they've had to people please so much, and now they're coming into their more authentic voice, and they're understanding their needs, their wants, their truth a bit more, when we understand ourselves more, we can understand how we want to stand in the world. But a lot of people are starting to step into that, but feel fear of the old. That's come up a lot, of the old paradigms, of the dogma of, this is how it needs to be, and the authoritative sort of domination, control, sort of form you want to call.
Yeah.
And like saying like, gosh, I don't know if I'm ready to step out, and I'm afraid of backlash, and people aren't going to like me. I mean, this is coming up a lot for people. And so with this energy of the astrology and your wisdom, what would you say to the people who are newly fresh, coming into themselves and into their voices, and want to step out of the spiritual closet,
Yeah. I would say, first of all, get support for yourself, because if you're serious about making a change and moving forward, you're going to have to go through this phase. And this is 100% what the astrology is saying. If we look at the fact you named everything that touches on the energies of that Pluto, Saturn, South Node in Capricorn, that is the dogmatic, patriarchal, old paradigm. It is the attachment for the permission from our father, not just like our father, but where do we come from, and who do we give our authority to tell us if we're good enough, if we're, we have got to be willing to let go of that approval, and also be willing to know that if there is a backlash, first of all, it's expected, because you're shaking everything up. And to just know that it's never about you. As much as the projections will try to make it about you, it's not about you. You're mirroring to everyone what's possible, and that's triggering AF. Because if somebody's still limiting themselves and not allowing themselves to move forward, to give themselves permission, and they're saying stuck, they're compromising, and then you decide not to, they're going to say, who the hell do you think you are? Because that's a projection of who they will not allow themselves to be. And that is what this square is that is Aries, this new self, butting heads with the old reality that we're moving, the old paradigms that we're moving out of in that Capricorn energy. So that's what's happening. And it's beginning first with Mercury, with our communication, with our minds, with our perceptions, with just on a fundamental level, how do we interact with our reality, and how that determines what our reality is. And when we start to notice our reality conflicts with the realities of the places where we've grown from, we have outgrown a lot, and that's being revealed. And maybe that's just what we need to recognize, is that we don't live there anymore, but you have a choice. So if you go back into that energy, it's going to be getting stuck, and getting stuck saves nobody. I think it's like a beautiful analogy to imagine if somebody's sick, and it's a contagious virus, whatever it is, like if we get sick, we won't help them by getting sick with them. We have to keep ourselves healthy so that we can help them get healthy as well, if they want. That's another thing that's really coming up, is everyone has free will, everybody, including ourselves. So we can lead a horse to water, but we can't make it drink. So this is not a time to put the illusion that people want us to carry them around. It's like, no, if they want to come, they get to come. And I leave that door open. And that's where the maturity is so important. That's where I think, until you have clarity, there's no rush. The illusion that there's a rush, that's an illusion. The illusion that I need to respond to this message now. I need to, like whatever it is, that's an illusion. It's like, once we're clear, that's when it's time. That's when we're really ready. And when these energies come into Taurus and they make the conjunction to Uranus, I think just be open to a radical new way of perceiving. We think things are black and white, and that is the trick, is to notice that you're even thinking that way and wait until you see that there's an opening for a third way, a middle way.
Wow. There's so many good gems there. Yeah, I really like that, not being a slave to just let the moment come. Sometimes we feel, because we have so many different devices, so many different apps, like people are always trying to get a hold of us in so many different ways, that we have to be like, oh, I need to respond to this, I need to respond to this. And it's like, no, we didn't, these apps are here to help us. We are not like slaves to this, we have to take these moments. Yeah, that's such a great reminder, when so many people are coming at you in different ways, and you don't have to respond to everyone right that second. That's not how it was made to be. It was supposed to be convenient, so we can make our lives easier, not so that we could be at the mercy of technology and try to keep up with it, rather than the way around, right? That's kind of
right. You need to be available to yourself first and foremost, before you're available to anyone, especially if it's a challenging situation. It's really important that we have the maturity to just, and this is also a challenge to our self-worth and our self-respect, because you are going to be challenged to say, to give yourself permission in whatever way that comes up. All the things that have been like basically controlling you, that plutonic control, the systems and the authorities, that all of that stuff in Capricorn, it's like, you get to see that. You get to see that from the inside out. What are your hooks where you get to be controlled or manipulated emotionally by anything around you? And then use that as an opportunity to unhook yourself, because as you move forward, this is the work, is to neutralize those hooks, so that they can come up and we become less and less charged or reactive to them. We become more and more integrated into our own authority, our own sovereignty as we move forward.
Wow. So important. This is huge, what you just said. Huge. This is wow. And that's why, things like meditation are wonderful, because when we meditate, we unhook ourselves from everything. We just allow that source energy to come through, or whatever you do when you meditate. But we need those moments to recalibrate and to not be a slave to anything outside of ourselves. Thank you for that reminder. That's such a great reminder. Very important.
Yes, we are allowed to say no, or to not say anything until we're ready to say something. So then after this new moon, we have the next day on May 5th, so this Sunday, we have Mars in Gemini making an opposition to Jupiter retrograde in Sagittarius. So this is really a beautiful opportunity. Mars is really leading the way right now. It's the head of the pack, if you think of it that way. So it is all about moving forward. And Gemini, Sagittarius energy is a lot about integrating our bigger picture ideas and ideals and our visions and our faith, our beliefs, all of that Sagittarius and Jupiter energy. We need to integrate that in what the actions we take day to day. So Mars and Gemini really just like the day-to-day ways that we show up. How are we moving through our routines? How are we moving through our day-to-day actions? So if there's any kind of like out of balance or imbalance in our day-to-day structure and schedule, that's still kind of holding us in a place that's limiting us from really moving forward more, then that's going to be an opportunity to really highlight that and then integrate that. So that'll be a good opportunity. And then the next day, Mercury leaves Taurus and leaves Aries and enters Taurus. So then we have Mercury in Taurus, which is a much less reactive energy mentally. We get a little bit of a break in that sense. Mercury in Aries has been a little bit fired up. We can get a little bit fired up, especially when it comes to like defending ourselves or getting things our way. we get a little bit more space mentally as it enters Taurus, a little bit softer speaking, a little bit softer around the edges, a little bit just slower in that way. So that'll be really nice to invite that in for ourselves. And then we start next week the same way that we started this week, but this time it's Venus. So this time Venus is going to make a square to the South Node and Saturn retrograde in Capricorn, and on the 7th. And so now we're kind of getting to the next layer, the next level of whatever we've been working through this week. So use this week as like, it's like boot camp, it's like, like meet these challenges head on, Mercury head on, and then really invite the heart to open. This is going to be a huge, excavation of any attachments and relationship, or any attachments that really diminish our self-worth that we're holding on to. This is going to be an opportunity to clear those up on an even deeper plane. Anything that keeps us from our joy, it could be something that also reveals itself in terms of like, where do we limit ourselves in our creative projects and our romantic lives? What are the old systems still preventing us from feeling good in our Venusian sensuality and sexuality and our right to feel sexy, even though we might be an alien or whatever we think we are? Like that Aries is like that. You're right, that like unique individual energy of like Aries is like, be who you are, like own it and love it. And being perfect right now, like in any way, putting yourself in a box, it's like soul crushing right now. So it's going to be another opportunity to heal in that way. And I think it'll be really supported though, as the next day on May 8th, we have Mercury making an exact conjunction to Uranus in Taurus. So there's that kind of like our mind, our crown chakras have this opportunity to really be opened and get downloaded with something from the higher realms. We have a connection. It's almost as if, the messenger has been going to the underworld, because Mercury, remember, is the messenger of the gods, and it can cross both ways. And so it's been going into like Saturn territory and Pluto territory, into these like underworld journeys. And now it goes up all the way to the top to Uranus, to the higher in the heavens and the gods. And so there's like this fire that we get to grasp from the gods, from the heavens. And that same day, the sun is making a sextile to Neptune and Pisces. So together, that's like, there's this opening where we can kind of revision and reimagine life from a very different perspective. So as we move through these difficulties, as we're holding space for ourselves and we're healing, and we're really working through these challenges to like work these kinks out of that hose, we get an opportunity to really like open and move forward with just like fresh, beautiful energy. So that's going to be awesome.
Oh, exciting. I'm excited for that.
Yes. The work, that's like the theme of this month, is the work that we show up for, it will pay off. Because all those squares that we talked about are preceding some beautiful trines coming in. So if we even keep moving on May 9th, that's when Venus in Aries is going to trine Jupiter and square Pluto. So that same thing we talked about with Mercury this week, we get that, we're faced with not only the systems and the place where we give our authority away, but now it's also, where do we give our power away? And those like deeper, instinctual, raw, emotional places, we get to excavate those. But it's supported by Jupiter. So it's like, there's a gift in this. Sometimes that release, that cathartic release, is really what opens us further, and allows us to kind of like wash ourselves clean. So let yourself be washed clean, wash your heart clean, let it go, let it all go. Don't hold on to anything right now, so that you can continue building and moving forward.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. So much opportunity already coming in.
Yeah. And it's one thing that's coming to me as well is that I talked about the tower moment and then the fool moment. And what I see coming after this with these trines that are happening in Taurus. So next, the sun trines Saturn, for instance, and then it's going to trine Pluto. So it's like, now there's this beautiful like Empress energy, because it's really released the things that keep it from feeling beautiful and feeling just that queen-like energy. Like, you are the authority of yourself. You own who you are. You own what you want. You own your magic, And so now you're like, yeah, what do I want? And I'm going to be picky about it. And I'm going to allow myself to rebuild in a way that is from my own authority, from this place of maturity and this place of just like, yeah, like, I'm going to get a pedicure because I get to do that. Like, yeah, I deserve that. Hell yeah. So it's fun, it's beautiful, and it's like this mature romance with ourselves, mature romance with life. It's like, I don't want just anybody to come into my life and romance me, including like an opportunity in life. I want the best of the best. I want the things that really mirror back to me the things I've gone through to get to where I am,
Yes. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. And then there's some beautiful like romantic synergy, and we feel fired up, and our connections are going to be really stimulating and really calling us forward, because right after that, after those trines that the sun's making, we're going to have Venus and Aries sextile Mars and Gemini. So the divine masculine and feminine, there's some integration, there's some romance, there's some fun. It's really this like stimulating conversations. It might be meeting really new people in your environment, kind of going out of your ordinary environment, or just putting yourself into new situations with new people, having new conversations, talking about things you like only talked about before to certain people. It's like, maybe at this point you're like, okay, I have like been through enough. I have like completely surrendered my desire to please everybody, and now I'm just going to own who I am, and these people are going to come in. We're going to attract in the opportunities that really like get off on the same things we do, so to speak,
Yeah.
So it'll be fun. That's going to be on May 14th. So look forward to that fun energy coming in. And then after that, that's right before Venus enters Taurus. And on the same day, actually, so now Venus and Mars are kind of moving side by side in this parallel way. They're like, we've got that activation, that synergy going on, that kind of like, yeah, that's right, I'm ready, I'm good to go, moving forward. We're past those squares, thank God. So now it's like, it is like we are moving into this new cycle. And on May 15th, Venus moves into Taurus, Mars moves into Cancer, and we go from this fiery air quality of Gemini and Aries, that like conversation and socializing and all of that, to now it's like, let's build something, let's create something, let's bring people together, that water earth of like, let's connect, let's nourish, let's deepen. So really that that beautiful opportunity to just like form these connections, and that are really going to bring the best out of us as well,
Wow, that's so much going on, and it feels good. It feels like it's been like a very intense start, and then it feels like, yes, like what did you say earlier? Like the work we put in, basically we'll get back all the work we put in. So it is a good time to invest in the work that you're doing, to trust the process. That sometimes we have to go through the process, and then we can reap the rewards. And it sounds like there's a lot available to us this month. What happened there?
It froze. I don't know. It just froze. But yeah, I mean, everything you said, it's like right now we're working out the kinks, anything that's like getting in our way in order to align to like literally just like that. Like we're working out these kinks. And so approach it like that. Like don't approach it like, why is this happening? Approach it like, so much good is happening. What a gift that I get to like make sure that I clear this up before I keep moving forward, so that I'm not bringing anything with me that's really not serving me. And I'm not settling for anything that I don't need to settle for. I have full permission to put things down that don't serve me. And then that way I can really align to the flow of life, because now these trines are just an open, fluid exchange of energy between these signs. And so it is supportive, it is available, it is open. Once we clear out those kind of inner, wheels before we move forward. Yeah. And then And then we just continue to have this beautiful astrology as we go into May 16th and 17th. Mercury and Taurus is going to now make those trines to Saturn and Pluto. So whatever we talk about that we're going through in the beginning of the month, you talked about people who are really going through that first initial phase of breaking out of the box, you know, becoming, it's like moving from a place of the fear of rejection or the shame that comes from being outside of that box that we've always like been inside of, to embracing being that outlier, to embracing being that unique individual, to owning our worth and being like, that's right, I'm out. Like, this is where I'm at. I'm out. And then once we own that, it's like now on May 16th and 17th, towards middle and end, now it pays off. Now we're going to get that mirrored and manifested in our outer circumstances. We get to start rebuilding and seeing the way that we can rebuild what we believe is possible. So our faith will be tested and our faith will be rewarded depending on how much we participate with that, right?
I love that. Depending on how much we participate. So everyone, remember, it's about you guys taking responsibility, and how much you participate is what you're going to get back.
Yes, if we play the victim card,
Yep.
if we play the blame card, if we do any of that, we are holding ourselves in a paradigm that we claim to want out of. So that's where it's like, really take the time to take a step back. Don't rush through something you don't know until you know. Get clarity, get centered. Yeah, and it's okay to have like a week or two where you're needing to get centered or clear. Give yourself what you need to do that, you know.
That's beautiful.
And then on May 18th, we have the Scorpio full moon, which is at 27 degrees of Scorpio. And on that same day, Venus is making a conjunction to Uranus. So this is a beautiful 0 point again in terms of all of the stuff that happened in Scorpio at the end of last year. I mean, we had Venus retrograde here, Mercury retrograded back to this point, we had Jupiter here. 2018 was like such a Scorpio year. And this is really a moment where Venus meets up with Uranus at 3 degrees of Taurus, this brand new place. And this full moon, this culmination of this Scorpio full moon is like this culminating point to really finally see where we've come and really have this huge shedding, this huge letting go of all of what's behind us. It's truly behind us if we can allow it to be. This is like, this month is such an opportunity to start fresh.
Wow.
And really, I just can't wait for that full moon. I think it's going to be radical. It's going to be shocking. It's going to be innovative. That Uranus energy with Venus, it's just like, especially since Venus retrograded in Scorpio this last year, to have Venus now be out of retrograde and conjuncting Uranus opposite of like where it was retrograding at, is that says something. Like, we're culminating a huge cycle. And I think it's like, oh, it's so exciting. The spiral is like spiraling out, you know?
Love it.
So we are like waking up. Our hearts are waking up. It's brand new energy. It's beautiful. Might be a little bit shocking, you know? It's not always the most sensitive energy. Uranus is not always like, let me make sure that I don't offend anybody before I say this. It's like, no, it's like, I'm here. Woo! I got the fire. I'm here. So that's going to be exciting. I mean, we'll see, you know, there's what kind of package it's delivered in that shocks us all. And then we get into Gemini season. So we go from all of this Earth and, you know, cardinal energy, and then we move into Gemini season. May 21st, we have the sun enters Gemini, Mercury's with the sun entering Gemini, and we have that superior conjunction at 0 degrees of the sun and Mercury, 0 degrees Gemini. So this is the point where Mercury cycle, if we think about Mercury retrograde that happened, not to bring up anything traumatic from this year, but we are finally like, now there's almost like this gem that's come out from the other side. Again, it's like it went all the way back and all the way forward. And now it's like,
Mhm.
Yeah. So all of that reframing and like subterranean, mercurial work that we were doing. Mercury's really like, we're ready to like really move forward. Our minds are opened and we're seeing things from a whole new perspective. It's a whole new world. And really facing forward and having that, it's a transition point. It's at 0 degrees, plus it's a mutable sign. And mutable signs are the point of transition from season to season.
Okay.
So Gemini is, for instance, the sign between Taurus and Cancer. So it's a transition from spring into summer. So we're transitioning, like it's like literally we're transitioning into a new way of perceiving, a new reality, a new way of thinking, and we're applying everything that happened. We're not bringing it forward, but we're applying what we gain from that in order to like move forward.
Wow, so much
excitement. Yeah I know there's not really any dull moments this month. No.
I felt like it was like go, and then I took a nap.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. I've like, there's been a couple days this week where I woke up and I was like, I'm gonna go redo that. So I like went back to sleep for like, even if it's like 20 minutes, I'm like, I'm just gonna redo that for a minute. And then I'm gonna wake up again, So like, taking those pauses, those breaks is just, it's important so that we can continuously direct where we're putting our mindset, our attention, our energy. Just not letting ourselves get caught up on any wheels for longer than we need to. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then May 22nd, we have Mars in Cancer making a sextile over to Uranus in Taurus, which is now at 4 degrees. So it's moving even farther forward into Taurus. This is like, again, brand new territory. And so this is like a really beautiful transit to show the synergy between following our urge and instinct to move forward and like listening to our guts. It's Mars in Cancer Mars doesn't like to be in Cancer. It's its place of fall. So it's, but that's because Cancer is a cardinal water sign. So it's very sensitive emotionally. And so Mars is like, I gotta go. And if we're just reacting to our emotions, sometimes that's not helpful. Sometimes it like gets us off course, which is why Mars is like, damn it. I thought it was right in the moment because it felt right, but I wasn't thinking about the bigger picture. It's very much like making ourselves feel better. But this sextile kind of gives us an idea that, well, if we're actually aligned with our truth, with ourselves, and we've created a condition in which we really are living in order to follow our feelings, we can kind of trust the stability of trusting our relationship to our emotions as our guide. If we've been using that as it's like a progressive way of listening to our emotions. I feel like it's something like that. Like the emotions are the messenger to carry us forward, but we have to kind of tune into the higher message and make sure it's not just an instinct drive, but it's actually, it's something connected to our intuition. It's really in the highest good to move forward.
Beautiful.
But listening to the body for sure around that date would be beneficial because the body will know, we'll be getting signs to tell us where to go and where not to go. And then we have a little bit of a break. There's not a ton of astrology that next week until May 29th, the end of the month. Now that we're into the mutable energy, we start to introduce the mutable squares happening between Mercury and Gemini and Neptune and Pisces. And so that energy, the end of the month, that Mercury-Neptune energy, it reminds me a lot of the Mercury retrograde we had, where it can just feel like we're the boundaries as far as our minds go and our psychic perceptions. It can feel like we're really able to just pick up on everything in a way that's not necessarily invited or wanted or helpful. We're highly sensitive. It's a very great aspect for tuning into the divine, for looking for signs. It might be because it's a square, you might be getting signs that you don't want to listen to. So really ironing out any kind of kinks in terms of like, where do we block our intuition because we have something we want to happen, but it's not necessarily what our higher self wants to happen. That might be coming in a little bit in that moment. And then on May 30th, Venus in Taurus makes a sextile to Neptune. That same day, Mercury's opposing Jupiter. So again, there's that kind of like, there's something not completely making sense in terms of like what we're thinking and what we're like perceiving moment to moment and the bigger picture. We might be getting stuck and trapped in kind of like a immediate like perception rather than taking the time to kind of zoom out. But really allowing ourselves to not get stuck in the mind and really shift into the heart, since Venus is trining Neptune. It's like tune into that messenger first, like listen, really sink into the heart at the end of the month, because the mind might be spinning. It might be kind of stuck in this limited perspective, and we might need to really open ourselves up to like integrate that bigger perspective and our belief structure into our moment to moment conversation and perspective. Yeah. And then the month ends with Venus making its trine to Saturn. So it's like this beautiful Venus and Saturn. It's like these relationships that are still here. They're supportive. We can trust them. There's a mutual respect. There's a mutual like sovereignty and responsibility and a self-worth that is mirrored through the support of the people around us. Just a really good day to end the month. It's a beautiful supportive trine. Our projects take root. We have stability.
I love that. That's so exciting. Yeah, because this is the month that we're doing chapter reviews, chapter revisions, and people are going in and reworking their chapters. And hopefully by the end of the month, we're going to have it solidified so that we can move into the production of releasing our book. So yeah, I mean, all of this is relatable artistically as well and creatively, like how the reworking and being patient and how much effort you put in is what you're going to get out. And then expansion, contraction, it's like, oh, everything's happening this month. Yeah. It's felt very it's already felt intense, but I know that it's because there's so much energy probably stirring underneath for so much movement and change. And so that's always exciting. I love momentum.
Yeah. And I think I love how you said expansion, contraction, because like that's definitely happening this month. It's not necessarily happening like this. More so I'm seeing it as like happening at once at the same time. And so it's really taking a moment to see all the good that's happening and to use that again as encouragement to get through the challenge, to be like, I got this, like I've been using the motto, like, you go girl, like you got this. Like maybe I don't know right now, but like we'll figure it out, We'll figure it out. Otherwise we can get stuck in the other dynamic, which is using the challenge to influence or inform the good. So it's almost like, oh, this is not working, so I must not really be doing this as well as I thought, or it's like, don't let that encourage your doubt. Instead, let your growth encourage your learning. And also this opportunity to really re-invite ourselves to work with challenge. And the idea of failure, that's been really big too, is like, I love the acronym FAIL, first attempt in learning. It's like having the maturity and that mature optimism in ourselves and the confidence in ourselves to be like, maybe I don't know what I'm doing, but like, I'll figure it out. I'm going to research things. I'm going to lean on support. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to tune in. I'm going to take a moment. Like, I'm going to do what it takes, but I'm going to figure it out.
Beautiful. That's a lot to digest for this month, but very, very, very informative. You did such a great job in giving us a huge overview and then breaking it all down. If you could put this month in one sentence, one theme, what would that be?
Oh God.
I know that's a big one. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's cool. I feel like, what was coming to me was it's like soul consolidation.
Ooh,
it's
okay.
Yeah, I would say that it's really like, all right, like it's time to like really like consolidate our assets of ourselves, of our growth, all these little different areas of our life that we've been working on and aligning to our soul. And now it's like, if there's any soul retrieval still needing to happen, which has already started to reveal itself this week, this is really like, we get to consolidate everything. And that way we have a great like bank of self-worth, of our soul, of our energy, of just our power, you know, to go forward. Yeah.
I just love that. That's so powerful. Thank you so much for this beautiful forecast. I feel this is definitely going to help clarify so much for so many people. And it's wonderful to have this perspective, because then we go through the month and we kind of figure out what's going on. And we're like, oh yeah, remember when Sarah said that?
Yeah. You know, what's so funny is that my friend sent me our April forecast at the end of last week, I think, and was like, I think you might want to listen to this. And I listened to it and I was like, oh fuck. Like,
exactly.
I called this. Like, I read this, I knew this, and now it's like
was coming.
Yeah. So it's like, I also want to encourage people to listen in the beginning and then listen in the middle.
It's true.
And then listen in the end. And so even like going back to the April astrology now, so that you can really like take and like really take all of that gold with you, because now you have perspective of what it was related to. So it's not just like to give you instruction or information to help going into it, but it's like to reap all of the benefits from the growth and the lessons that happened. Yeah, there's like so much to reap. There's so much to reap from that. And I mean, I'm included in that. So it's just funny. It's like, even though we do the reading and we do the channeling, it's still helpful for us and necessary.
I love that, you guys. So make sure that you listen to this in the beginning, now, and then also mid-month, and at the end of the month, get out a journal and listen to it again, and then just see how it played out for you. And this is how we grow, and this is how we take in all the gems for ourselves, is when we take time to do the review in the beginning and the end. It's just like editing a chapter, guys. The beginning and the end, and then we refine it and figure out what we want to bring forward with us. And that's really the key. We're all going through this process, I think, of as long like refinement, and every month is an opportunity to sort of refine a different aspect or multiple aspects, and then bringing that growth forward. It brings us to a whole new level, and that's how you can use astrology to really grow. So that being said, if you guys want to book a session with Sarah, she's available for private readings. You can get your chart done. I've got mine. It is awesome. I need to listen to it again, because again, you can learn so much about yourself. The more you understand how you operate uniquely in this world, the more that you can really move in this world with more grace and ease, because we have to understand ourselves first and foremost before we can understand anyone else. It's not the opposite way around. So, anyhow, thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on. Your astrology reports are incredible and amazing tools for ascension and beyond. And thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful, incredible month.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy. You've got this.
You've got this. So much love.